My name is Deneen White, and I'm the host of the Coffee in the Greenroom podcast. Here in Coffee in the Greenroom, we have those conversations you may not have in front of the stage, but you have behind the stage before you take the stage. I am so excited to have the one and only Mitzi Perdue here today on the podcast. Mitzi, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I absolutely. First of all, I love being here. And second, I love the premise that it's the green room, the conversations that are off camera.
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of amazing people on this podcast, and the conversations that we have truly are like the ones that you have in the green room. Not too long ago, I had the opportunity to interview one of your good friends, Mark Victor Hansen, on the podcast, and it was one of the most energetic podcasts that I've ever had, and it was so exciting. And he's the one who introduced you to me, and I'm really excited that you're here. So, for any listener that maybe is not really familiar with who you are, can you just do a brief intro of who you are?
Oh, I'd be delighted. I'm an 82-year-old war correspondent. Oh, I've been to Ukraine.
Saying that.
I've been to Ukraine 3 times. I've had 52 stories published on Ukraine. And what I think is possibly the most special about the stories is about maybe 15% of them were from interviews in bomb shelters in cities under active attack.
Wow.
So I love the idea of being 82 and still having adventure.
Oh my gosh, the chutzpah you have. I mean, there's I know so many people that are 1/3 of your age that don't have the adventures that you have. So that's pretty amazing.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So, Missy, let's talk a little bit about where you came from. So you come from a very successful family, but can you talk about some specific challenges that you faced that were unique to coming from a successful family? And how did you overcome them on your path to success?
All right, I did come from a family I'm really proud of. My my family's a business family. We began in 1840. The Henderson Estate Company has never not been run by a Henderson. And my father was the co-founder, along with my uncle, of the Sheraton Hotel chain. And if you want to think about privilege, how about growing up being an hotel heiress with 400 hotels? Because the amount of presidential suites I've been in, it's unreal. Okay, but you asked the very specific question, what are some of the disadvantages? Uh, I think, how about a danger more than a disadvantage? But I think a danger is you grow up in a terrible bubble. You think everybody's rich, everybody has it easy.
Yeah.
And my family put a certain amount of effort into trying to get us out of the bubble. And I'll give an example. Uh, it was a requirement in the family that we attend public school for several years. We went to private schools, but we also went to public schools. And I think that's just for a family of means, that's got to be one of the best things possible, because I ended up making really good friends with the son of a policeman, or a daughter whose mother, she worked behind the jewelry counter in Gilchrist, and or my best friend was a daughter of a dairy farmer. So, uh, so danger, you grow up in a bubble and are unaware that other people live differently. Solution, go to public school. But we also, to this day, I go, if I'm traveling, which I do quite a bit of, because as a correspondent, that's what I do. I want to go economy. I do go economy class. I've been to China 12 different times. It's a 12-hour trip. I go economy class, and I could afford first class, but I think it's helps escape the bubble by going economy class. I also go subway all the time, and I'm not talking the restaurant, although I like them. I'm talking about if I'm in New York,
Mm.
I'm going to go from here to there by subway.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about being a war correspondent, because I know that that's something you're truly passionate about. So talk to me about how did you become a war correspondent, first of all? Because it seems like you've done so many amazing things, and now here you are, when most people are retired and going on vacations, you're going to Ukraine to cover the war. So tell me a little bit about that.
All right, it came about by such an accident, really. Uh, I write a column, possibly millions of women who get trafficked at the border. Well, I wrote about this, and by a huge, wonderful coincidence from my point of view, there's the head of the Kyiv region police, and that's large. It's like 6,400 people. The head of the whole thing, his master's thesis as somebody in law enforcement was human trafficking. And
Wow.
somebody had the article that I wrote on trafficking and Ukraine, it reached him. And pretty soon, we're talking a year ago, I get an invitation to a Zoom with Kyiv. I get on, and it's General Nebitov, the head of the Kyiv region police, saying that he agreed with my story, that in general it was right. But he said, it's so much worse. Come see for yourself. You'll be the guest of the Kyiv region police. 10 days later, I'm in Kyiv. Woohoo!
Wow. That's amazing. And what was it
And
like?
let me tell you about my first night there.
Okay.
Uh, I check into the hotel, and as part of checking into the hotel, they tell you what to do if there's an air raid. And here's what you do should you ever need to know. You don't take the time to like even go put on a bathrobe or something. You have your go bag, that is your passport, your money, and whatever medications it may be, by the front door. And your job is to, you hear the air siren, you rush to the front door, you grab your go bag, and then you run down like 6 flights of stairs to the bomb shelter. Well,
Wow.
I'm hearing this, as I'm checking in and thinking, oh, that's not going to happen to me. That night it did.
Oh my word.
I spent my first night in Kiev in a bomb shelter. I'm going to guess there were 35 or so other people there. And I was sort of personally interested of how I would react when there's bombs heading towards you.
Yeah.
And I discovered about myself, I'm in the right profession as a correspondent, because I'm searching my mind. Am I scared? Nope. What I'm completely focused on is talking with the other people there and who they are and what they're doing and how scared they are. It's as if I almost forgot myself, and I feel good about that I could forget myself.
That's amazing. So when you go now, you go to Kiev, and your first night, you're in a bomb shelter with all of these people. What are some of the things that you learned not only about yourself but about the people in the bomb shelter? Like, what was their experience? Because I think so many times we hear the macro, but we never really hear the micro, like the stories of the individuals.
Yeah, some of the things I learned. I would say most of them were pretty unnerved. I mean, because you're contemplating eternity.
Yeah.
Uh, but then there's one other part of the story which I left out, which is I once took a course in statistics, and so I tend to look at the world a little bit statistics. And I'm thinking Ukraine has a population of several million. The odds of that bomb finding me are pretty small. So I really didn't feel fear, but like some of the mothers were comforting children. They, I'm thinking that studying statistics is a pretty good antidote to fear, because they, I think I had a more realistic awareness of the degree of danger we were in, and they didn't. They just thought bomb coming towards us.
Yeah.
Um, and then one other thing that you and our listeners, viewers might be interested in, I made friends with one of the people there who's specialist. He's he's ex-military, but for some reason he and his friend, whom I also met there in the bomb shelter, I saw them at dinner the next night, and for the fun of it, they were having a contest between the two of them of who could find the name and the profession and the travel plans of all the people there. And it would take them like about 30 seconds to say, like I talked with a guy who was a kidney specialist from Johns Hopkins. Uh, they could find out who this guy is, find his name, find that he had arrived by train the night before, and yeah, they could call it up on Facebook, and I could say, yeah, that's the guy. I mean, I had absolutely no idea how there's nothing secret about us. They could identify every single person there, and I cannot tell you how they do it, but I can tell you that A, they were accurate, and B, they were fast.
Oh my goodness. So we think we live these private lives, but we really don't.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you spoke about human trafficking, and that's something that when I was about 15, 20 years ago, I was in Mexico and I had my first encounter with human trafficking. I met this little girl who was trafficked through Mexico, and I will never forget my first experience like in person with human trafficking. So can you talk to me a little bit about what's going on in Ukraine and how people who are listening can help? And also not only that, but also we work with actors, models, and musicians, and so many of them, they hear an opportunity and they get so excited, and they're so excited about someone wanting to pay attention to them that they don't see the danger signs. Like I had this opportunity recently, I spoke to a girl and she was so excited. I was interviewing her because we have an event coming up in Hollywood in May, and she was like, Deneen, I would love to do it, but I'm not going to be there. I was like, okay, well, why are you not going to be there? And she's like, well, I'm going to Korea. And long story short, I won't tell you all of the details,
I
but
think I can guess.
yeah, she had no experience, and someone she met online, her friend she met on TikTok, was like, oh my gosh, I have this agency, you should come to Korea. No experience. And she was like, and I was like, whatever you do, don't do it. And I explained to her, it was my opinion, my very educated opinion, that if you do this, you're going to be sold into human trafficking. And she was like, no, no, no. And I was like, listen, we work with Operation Underground Railroad. We're good friends with
Yes,
Tim
yes, yes. I love
Ballard.
them. Oh, I love
Yeah,
them. I love them.
yeah. So I was like, look, and I told her, and she was like, no. And I was like, listen, so if you decide to do this, please give your family a hug and tell them goodbye, because you won't come home. But people don't believe it can happen to them. And I know there's a lot, the uptick in human trafficking from the war in Ukraine has gone up tremendously. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. First of all, I think you saved a life by warning that girl, because I don't think there's any chance that anybody would invite a stranger to Korea for anything that's benevolent.
No.
But to finish trying to answer your question about what I've seen going on in Ukraine, uh, because I've been 3 times, but the first time, because I was particularly interested in human trafficking, uh, I got to see where a lot of it takes place, which is at the border between Ukraine and Poland. And to give you an idea of the scale of the problem, nobody knows exactly how many, because it's a hidden crime.
Yeah.
I've heard estimates from European officials who track this, that the number 5 million is a number that could be defended.
Oh my goodness.
That doesn't mean it is 5 million, but there are people who use that figure. So how do they do it? And here's what happens. And my figures aren't current. The figure I'm about to give you comes from maybe, I don't know, 9 months ago. But there was a point where there were 8 million refugees, and most of them were women. And most of them, they crossed the border. They're traumatized like you can't believe. They've lost all their possessions. Maybe relatives have died. They don't speak any language other than Ukrainian or possibly Russian. They're in a foreign country. How about to survive? You need food, you need shelter,
Yeah.
and you really need a job.
Yeah.
So you cross over, and some nice guy says, oh, you look like you could use a hot meal, and I've got a place for you to stay tonight, and we'll take care of your little girl too, and I can find you a job. You know, I find meaning in life helping people like you. Sure. Anyway, she gets in a van, and he tells her the van's leaving in 5 minutes. She gets in a van, and I have heard from people in law enforcement that what's likely to happen to her is that they will rape her 30 times that night to completely break her spirit so that she has nothing left to fight with and she's just compliant until she dies.
Yeah. I've heard that many times as well.
Is the 30 times a night, have you heard that before? Because
Yeah, I have heard that. I don't remember exactly where I've heard it, but I've done a lot of research on human trafficking. Like there was a movie about 10-15 years ago that came out about the abolitionists. I know the music to the movie, but I can't think of the name of the movie. But I did a lot of research, and like they break them and they also get them, they feed them heroin also to numb them. So there's like drug addiction, there's the multiple rapes so that they can completely break their spirits. And this is something that we, as a company, VIP Ignite, we fight ardently against this. And like we've helped to free over 3,500 women and children from sex trafficking through our partnership with Operation Underground Railroad. And
I
it's,
love that. I love that. Bless you.
yeah, and it's something that like people don't know. Like people don't know, like when you go to your local nail salon, when you go to, there's so many places that slavery is not dead. There are more people enslaved now than there were during the totality of the transatlantic slave trade today, on this day where you and I are speaking. And if this is something that, if we could get, I mean, unfortunately, in order for there to be such a pervasive problem, there has to be a huge demand.
And I wish somebody could come up. Well, I will share with you what a European official told me, what he's working on. And I don't know how much impact it will or won't have, but he wants to, that this is for, it's an umbrella organization. It's the OSCE, and I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but his specialty is combating human trafficking. And his goal is to have, when you do a search on Google or whatever, I mean, all search engines, if you search for like Ukrainian escort or something, that there would come up a message saying, this person might be the victim of human trafficking. Don't exploit her. Don't. And I'm sure he has a more eloquent way of saying it, but the bottom line is, don't do it. And
Yeah.
and you know, I suspect from talking with loads of guys in my life that up until somewhat recently, I think the average guy didn't realize that the woman that they're paying to sleep with is probably a slave.
Yeah, whether even if it's not someone from Ukraine, like most of this is what I tell people. Like I'm a woman. I grew up, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a lot of things. I never once wanted to be a prostitute or so like I tell the people that, and like I kind of joke about it and laugh about it, but it's true. It's like I don't understand how people don't understand. But I guess it's because you don't want to. There's a lot of things that we put blinders on because we just don't want to know.
I couldn't agree with you more. But then I'm a writer, and although I'm technically a war correspondent, because if I've been shot at, uh, I am a war correspondent. But other than that, I spend a lot of my life writing and speaking about human trafficking with the idea that the more people who know that there's somebody suffering on the other end and that she's not making the money you've paid for it, it's going to some pimp. Or
Yeah.
actually, it's probably not even going to some pimp, it's going to a cartel somewhere.
Yeah.
And
And
and guess where the cartel is putting all those billions that it makes? How about to bribing border guards or politicians?
yeah, it's the level of corruption that goes along with human trafficking is, it's startling. It's
Well, let me give you an example. I did a story. This story has a twist. I did a story. I interviewed a sheriff in one of the border counties bordering Mexico, and he told me he had 997 unaccompanied minors, and he only had resources to check. Like 3 of them were the people who were showing up saying, I'm Tio Alberto and I'm taking little Elena to Sacramento. They only have, they're so overwhelmed that they only have resources to check out 3 of these. That means that 994 are probably going to traffickers. And so I said, the interview was in June. I said, was this yesterday? And he said, no, this is since January 1. I'm putting it backwards. I said, is the 997 since this year? And he said, no, since yesterday. That per day, it's close to 1,000 unaccompanied minors, and they have no ability.
And that's in one town.
As in one town. Okay, but now here's the corruption. I said there would be a twist. If we as a country believe that we care about human beings, why in it's impolite to swear, so I won't, but why in the blank don't we do more to secure the border? Because it's just an open invitation. You know, little Elena is almost certainly going to be trafficked. And how do we know that it's likely that she will? Because the sheriff that I interviewed said, you know, we've got photographs of all these people and we see little Elena. No, she hasn't gone to Sacramento with Tio Alberto. No, she's in a brothel in Miami. That's the next time they hear of her.
Yeah,
it's somebody's I don't know of another explanation other than that the cartel has so many billions that it can pay or blackmail politicians to leave the border open.
Yeah, it's inexplicable to me because, like you said, if we care about humans, why are we not doing something, especially for our children? Like, I feel for the grown women as well, but like for the children, like what kind of society doesn't care for its children?
Oh, you and I are soul sisters because I look at it exactly the same way. What are we doing? As I said, I won't swear, but blankety blank 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 blank.
Yeah,
That was the worst curse words you can think of.
I filled in all of the blankety blank blank blank.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, this has been amazing, and I hope that anyone listening, there are a couple of points that I hope that people take away, and then I'll have you add the points that you want them to take away. Like, I hope, first of all, for if you're an actor, model, musician, and you're listening to this, please understand that there are real dangers in the world. And I think that so many times we think it's not going to happen to us. But there are people out there, whether you're a child or like Mitzi, we have children that come on to our Zoom calls, and we're like, what are you doing? Where is your parent? And they get so mad at me. They get so mad. We're like, but you don't understand. This is the way that this is the first step. Like, and you know, I actually do have one more question for you, and then we'll I could talk about this for like 4 days. I could talk about this forever.
Me too.
But this is something else that really astounds me about human trafficking as well. It's not only that there's such a market for babies, for children. Okay. But here's the other thing is, so many times it's women that are helping to traffic the children. Did you see that in Ukraine as well?
What I personally witnessed was guys doing it.
Okay.
I'm sure there are women, but oh my Lord, what I saw. But it was always men. It was men sort of protecting these women.
Yeah. Maybe it's a cultural thing, because I know something I've learned a lot about too is that a lot of times the women will befriend other women and then get them in. Like, that's something Operation Underground Railroad deals with a lot.
Okay, that's a thing, and I'm aware of it in this country. I know since I'm a writer, I bet I've written a couple of hundred stories based on interviews of things like that. So yes, it is a thing, but at the border, I think the dynamic would be, you know, you're a woman and you need a protector, and this big, strong, handsome guy offers to protect you. I'm not sure a woman could do it as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think online it's easier for a woman to befriend a woman and bring them into whatever it is that they're doing. Well, I just want to thank you so much. This is this is not the turn I was expecting for our podcast. I had some amazing questions that I wrote up and I was so excited. But I've done a lot of podcasts, but this one means so much to me because this is my heart. Like I truly my I wasn't planning on crying either, but like there are so many people out there that are in so much danger. And I just want to thank you for you're in your 80s and you're out there on the front line. So thank you so much for being not only an inspiration. Like I hope, as God is my witness, my prayer is that when I am in my 80s that I'm as active as you and helping as many people as you are. But I just want to thank you so much for your time today. I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you being here and sharing this story. And anyone listening to this podcast, please just be careful and be a good human. Be careful and be
And my advice, at least to younger people, older people probably already know this, but for younger people, you've heard the term confidence man or confidence woman, a con man, a con woman. Their whole business in luring you in is to gain your confidence. So don't be a victim of a con man. I mean,
Yeah.
they have their tools and they're very good at it. And if you're young and inexperienced, boy, you're a perfect target. By the way,
Yeah.
can I give a quick plug to an organization in Ukraine that I'm
I would
recently?
love you to. Yes, I would love you to plug any organizations and how people can find you as well.
Okay, all right. The one that I think is going to make a big difference for Ukraine's recovery and also for it sort of is turning the faucet off uh, on more victims of human trafficking. The organization, it's called Donor, as I give you donor, C, like I see you. So donorc.com/Ukraine. And when you're writing donorc.com/Ukraine, be sure to have the Ukraine so that the money goes to Ukraine. And I would love, I mean, a contribution of $2 makes a difference.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I love to tell people in Ukraine that Americans are supporting them. And, you know, I almost, if you gave me a choice of one person giving me $1,000 or 100 persons giving me $1, a lot more money with the $1,000, but I'd take the 100 people because I get to tell people in Ukraine that Americans care. So donorc.com/Ukraine. And if
Awesome.
they want to get hold of me, it's MitziPerdue.com.
Awesome. Mitzi, thank you so much. This is, again, I've done amazing podcasts, but this one has been my heartbeat. So thank you so much for sharing. And I appreciate this so much.
Well, you're a miracle interviewer because you got right to the things that I care most about. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. And for anyone who is listening to the Coffee in the Green Room podcast, make sure you hit subscribe because you never know who I'm going to be interviewing on Coffee in the Green Room. These conversations literally not only change lives, but save lives. So make sure you hit subscribe and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much.